Hey guys, tonight we are climbing above the storm. The thunder is rolling over the city, but up here in the tower, everything moves to a perfect rhythm. We are stepping inside the medieval clock. We are going to watch the brass gears turn and listen to the steady heartbeat of the machine. This is a story about patience, mechanics, and the sound of time. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Now, synchronize your breathing with the ticking, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Imagine yourself standing at the base of a stone tower that rises from the heart of a medieval city. The year is somewhere in the 1400s, and you have been invited by the master clockmaker himself to ascend into the very mechanism that governs the rhythm of this entire town. Your feet are on worn cobblestones. The rain falls around you in heavy sheets, relentless and cold, but you pull your cloak tighter and reach for the wooden door. It is heavy, weathered by centuries of hands, and it creaks open with the sound of old hinges resisting motion. Inside, there is a spiral staircase carved directly from the stone of the tower itself. The steps curve upward into darkness, disappearing into shadow above you. You begin to climb. Each step echoes in the hollow space of the tower. Your hand traces the cold stone wall as you ascend, and you can feel the centuries in these stones. They have stood through storms and wars and the endless turning of seasons. The air grows colder as you rise higher, and you become aware of a sound that grows louder with each step. It is faint at first, barely perceptible above the sound of your own footfalls and breathing, but as you climb higher, the sound becomes unmistakable. Tick, tock, tick, tock. It is the heartbeat of the tower itself. It is the sound of time being measured, divided, and distributed to the city below. The sound is mechanical and rhythmic, perfectly timed, absolutely consistent. There is something deeply hypnotic about it. With each tick and tock, another second of human life passes away into history. The staircase seems to go on forever, spiraling up and up through the cold darkness. Your breathing becomes synchronized with the ticking. Tick, you breathe in. Tock, you breathe out. Your body begins to align itself with the mechanism above. This is the intention of the tower, you think, to synchronize all of humanity with the perfect rhythm of the heavens themselves. The clockmaker believes that if everyone in the city moved to the beat of his machine, the whole society would function in perfect harmony. Everyone would arrive at the market at the precise moment the merchants opened their stalls. Workers would begin their labor exactly when the bell tolled. Families would gather for meals in synchrony with the ringing of the hour. The entire city would become like a single organism, breathing together, moving together, thinking together. But here in the darkness of the tower staircase, you are alone with the ticking, and the ticking seems to slow down the world around you. Your heartbeat slows to match it. Your breathing deepens. The sounds of the storm outside become distant and muffled, as if you are descending into the earth rather than ascending toward the sky. Yet you know you are climbing higher because the air is growing colder and the sound of the mechanism is growing louder. Finally, after what feels like an eternity of climbing, you reach the top of the staircase. There is a heavy wooden door, even older than the one at the base, and it is slightly ajar. Light spills through the gap. Warm light, the color of candlelight and lamplight. You push the door open, and you step into the clock room itself. The sight before you stops your breathing for a moment. You are standing inside the mechanism that has been calling to you with its rhythmic heartbeat. The room is vast, far larger than the tower's exterior would suggest. The walls curve upward into darkness, and the ceiling seems impossibly high. But it is not the size of the room that captures your attention. It is what fills it. Every inch of space that is not occupied by the stone walls is occupied by the clock itself. Gears, wheels, rods, ropes, and weights fill the chamber like some kind of enormous machine that has somehow been compressed into the space inside a tower. The smell hits you immediately. It is a complex mixture of scents that you have never quite encountered before, but which you will remember for the rest of your life. The primary smell is machine oil. It is sharp and clean, with a faintly metallic edge. But it is not an unpleasant smell. Beneath the machine oil, you smell cold stone, grey and ancient, the smell of minerals and earth that have been sealed away from sunlight for centuries. And beneath that, you smell brass. It is a warm smell, almost like the smell of old coins or precious metal. The brass catches the lamplight and glows with a burnished radiance that fills the chamber with a soft golden glow. And then, finally, you smell the warmth of the lanterns themselves. There are several lanterns positioned around the room, burning whale oil, and they fill the space with a warmth that contrasts sharply with the coldness of the stone and the chill of the machinery. You take a step forward, and your footsteps echo in the vast chamber. The sound of your footsteps mingles with the sound of the clock mechanism. Tick, tock, tick, tock. But now that you are inside the mechanism, you realize that the ticking is far more complex than it seemed from outside. There are not just two sounds. There are dozens of sounds, layered upon each other in a perfect rhythm. There is the sharp tick of the escapement mechanism. There is the deeper tock of the foliot arms swinging back. There is the grinding of gears turning. There is the creaking of the wooden frame. There is the soft whisper of the weights as they descend through the tower. All of these sounds have been combined into one unified rhythm, and your body has already become attuned to it. In the center of the room rises the main structure of the clock. It is a train of gears, as the clockmakers call it. The largest gear is easily the size of a full-grown man. It sits at the center of the machine, and it is constructed from solid brass. The gear wheel is at least 6 inches thick, and its teeth are perfectly carved and spaced. Around this main gear, smaller gears are arranged in a precise geometric pattern. Each of these gears is mounted on shafts that pass through the stone walls, and each one has been calculated and measured so that it will turn at a specific rate relative to the others. You walk slowly around the main gear, and as you do, you begin to understand the logic of the machine. The largest gear is driven by the weights that hang in the tower. As the weights descend due to the pull of gravity, they pull the gears, causing them to turn. The main gear is connected to the smaller gears through a system of interlocking teeth. When the main gear turns one complete rotation, the first smaller gear will turn twice. The second smaller gear will turn 4 times. The third will turn 8 times. And so on, with each successive gear turning faster and faster as it becomes smaller. This is how the machine divides time. The largest gear represents the hours. The medium gears represent the minutes. The smallest gears represent the seconds. As you watch the gears turn, you become aware of how perfectly they fit together. The teeth of one gear slide perfectly into the spaces between the teeth of the next gear. There is no jarring or grinding. There is no slipping or sliding. Each gear meshes with the next in perfect synchrony. The bronze-colored brass catches the light of the lanterns, and the turning gears reflect the warm, golden light back into your eyes. It is hypnotic to watch. The gears turn slowly, so slowly that you have to observe them for several seconds to convince yourself that they are actually moving. But they are. You can feel the movement through the vibrations in the floor beneath your feet. You can see the movement in the sweep of the brass reflections across the walls. And you can hear the movement in the steady tick and tock that fills the chamber. The clockmaker, who has been watching you from the shadows, finally steps forward. He is an old man, with white hair and hands gnarled from decades of working with metal. His eyes are clear and bright, and they watch your face with an expression of knowing satisfaction. He knows what you are feeling. He has seen this look on the faces of hundreds of people who have climbed into this room for the first time. It is the look of a human being confronting the fundamental truth of existence. Time is not an abstract concept. It is a physical force. It can be measured. It can be controlled. It can be made visible and tangible through the medium of brass and stone and the endless turning of gears. The clockmaker raises his hand and points to a specific mechanism within the larger system. This, he says, his voice barely audible above the ticking, is the heart of the machine. This is the escapement. It is the most important part of the entire mechanism because it is what creates the ticking sound. It is what slices time into seconds. The escapement is a mechanism known as the verge and foliot. It is a simple machine, in concept, but incredibly complex in its execution. The verge is a rod with two small pallet arms attached to it at right angles. The foliot is a bar that extends horizontally from the center of the clock, with weights attached to each end. The bar swings back and forth, and as it swings, it causes the verge to rock back and forth as well. You lean in closer to examine the escapement mechanism. The verge is made of polished steel, and it catches the lamplight with a bright gleam. The pallets at the ends of the verge are precisely crafted, with smooth surfaces that guide the movement of a special gear tooth called the escape wheel. The escape wheel turns very slowly, and as it turns, its tooth catches on the pallets of the verge, stopping the wheel momentarily. This creates the tick sound. Then the foliot swings back in the opposite direction, causing the pallets to release the tooth, and the escape wheel advances by one tooth. This creates the talk sound, and then the whole process repeats, over and over again, dividing the endless flow of time into measurable, countable seconds. The clockmaker explains that the verge and foliot mechanism was invented more than 100 years ago, and yet it remains the most precise method of measuring time that humanity has ever developed. Sundials and water clocks are primitive by comparison. Water can be spilled. Shadows can be obscured by clouds. But the verge and foliot is mathematical. It is based on the principles of physics and balance. As long as the weights continue to descend, and as long as gravity continues to pull downward, the mechanism will continue to tick and tock with perfect regularity. It will not slow down. It will not speed up. It will simply continue, dividing time into equal increments, second after second, minute after minute, hour after hour. You watch as the verge rocks back and forth, ticking and talking. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Your breathing synchronizes with the rhythm. Your heartbeat synchronizes with the rhythm. Your entire body becomes attuned to the rhythm of the machine. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you begin to wonder if this is what meditation feels like. Not a slowing of the mind, but a synchronization of the mind with the natural rhythms of the universe. The machine is not stopping time. It is not controlling time. It is simply making time visible and tangible. It is allowing humans to see the invisible force that moves through all of existence. Time is not an abstraction. Time is real. Time is physical. Time can be measured and counted and tracked and recorded. The clockmaker then leads you over to a small workbench positioned against one of the stone walls. On the workbench sits a small metal can filled with whale oil. Beside the can are several small tools made of brass and steel with tips that are pointed and flat and curved, designed to reach into the smallest crevices of the mechanism. This, the clockmaker says, is the maintenance. The machine must be cared for. The gears must be oiled regularly, or they will begin to grind and stick. The oil reduces friction between the moving parts, allowing them to turn freely and smoothly. Without oil, the machine would eventually seize up and stop working. The clock would fall silent. The city would lose track of time. The clockmaker picks up the small metal can and tilts it slightly, allowing a small drop of whale oil to form on the tip of a thin metal applicator. The oil is golden in color, and it catches the lamplight with a glossy shine. Then, with the precision of someone who has performed this task 10,000 times, the clockmaker leans in close to one of the gear pivots and allows the oil to drip slowly onto the metal. You lean in closer to watch. The oil spreads slowly across the smooth surface of the pivot, coating it with a thin, protective layer. The pivot is where the shaft of the gear passes through the support structure, and it is under enormous stress. As the gear turns, the pivot spins thousands of times per day, and the friction between the shaft and the support would generate tremendous heat and wear without lubrication. The clockmaker explains that he has been maintaining this clock for 30 years. He comes to the tower every week, bringing with him his small can of whale oil and his collection of tools. He inspects every gear, every pivot, every tooth. He listens to the sound of the mechanism, and he knows, from long experience, which sounds are normal and which sounds indicate a problem. He oils the pivots that have begun to dry out. He tightens connections that have loosened slightly. He ensures that every component of the machine continues to function in perfect synchrony. It is not difficult work, he explains, but it is meticulous work. It requires attention to detail. It requires patience. It requires a deep understanding of how all of the components fit together. As you watch the clockmaker work, you become aware of a profound truth. The machine is not alive, and yet it requires constant care and maintenance to keep it functioning. It is not conscious, and yet it demonstrates a kind of intelligence in the way its components work together. It is not a living being, and yet it has a kind of personality, a character that emerges from the way it has been designed and built. The clockmaker has poured his life into this machine. He has invested decades of learning and practice into understanding its mysteries, and in return, the machine has given him purpose. It has given him a reason to get up in the morning. It has given him work that matters. The clock measures not only the passage of time, but also the passage of the clockmaker's own life. You turn away from the workbench and look back at the main train of gears. The gears continue to turn with absolute regularity. Tick, tock, tick, tock. You count the seconds as they pass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The seconds accumulate into minutes. The minutes accumulate into hours. And all of this accumulation is being tracked and measured by the brass gears and steel shafts and carefully positioned teeth. The machine is keeping score. The machine is keeping time. The machine is witnessing the passage of human existence. Now the clockmaker leads you to the center of the tower, where there is a large open shaft that descends into darkness below. This, he says, is where the weights are. You lean over the edge of the shaft and peer downward. The darkness is nearly complete, but you can see something hanging in the center of the shaft. It is a large stone block, suspended by a thick hemp rope. The stone is at least 4 feet on each side, and it is incredibly heavy. You can see that the rope is thick and strong, wound around a pulley system that connects the hanging stone to the gears above. As the gears turn, the pulley system slowly lowers the stone, and as the stone descends, it pulls the gears, providing the energy that drives the entire mechanism. The clockmaker explains that the clock requires constant energy input to overcome the friction of the turning gears. Without the descending weights, the mechanism would slow down and eventually stop. The weights provide the potential energy that the clock converts into kinetic energy, which then manifests as the turning of the gears and the ticking of the escapement. The stone blocks are incredibly heavy, he explains, and they descend very slowly. It takes 24 hours for a weight to descend from the top of the tower to the bottom. At that point, a clockmaker must climb up into the mechanism and wind the weight back up again, pulling the rope hand over hand until the stone is back at the top. You look down into the darkness again and try to imagine the enormous stone blocks hanging in the center of the tower, slowly descending, pulling the gears, driving the mechanism that has governed the lives of every person in this city for more than 100 years. The weight is more than just a physical force. It is a metaphor for all of the invisible forces that shape human existence. Gravity, time, responsibility, the heavy burden of maintaining the systems that allow civilization to function. The clockmaker bears this burden every day. He comes to the tower and checks on the mechanism. He ensures that the weights are descending at the proper rate. He ensures that the oil is fresh and the pivots are well lubricated. He ensures that the gears are turning in perfect synchrony. And in doing so, he ensures that the city below continues to function. The clockmaker then takes you to where the clock face itself is visible from inside the tower. The face is enormous, easily 12 feet in diameter, and it is constructed from a single sheet of metal that has been carefully engraved with numbers and markings. The metal is brass, and it has been polished until it shines like gold. Behind the metal face is a glass panel, and beyond the glass is the storm that is still raging outside. You can see the rain hammering against the glass, can see the occasional flash of lightning in the distance, can hear the rumble of thunder echoing across the city. But inside, in the clock chamber, everything is perfectly still and perfectly ordered. The clockmaker explains that the clock face is connected directly to the gear, trained through a series of additional shafts and gears. The hour hand is connected to a gear that turns once every 12 hours. The minute hand is connected to a gear that turns once every hour. The exact positions of the hands on the face are determined by the precise positions of the gears inside the mechanism. At any given moment, a person looking at the clock face from outside the tower can see exactly how much time has passed. They can see the precise hour. They can see the precise minute. They can synchronize their activities with the ticking of the mechanism. You place your hand on the glass and feel the cold surface. Outside, the storm continues to rage. The wind is pushing hard against the tower, and you can feel the entire structure moving slightly in the wind. But the mechanism inside does not falter. The gears continue to turn. The escapement continues to tick and tock. The weights continue to descend. The clock face continues to move precisely forward, marking the seconds and minutes that pass. The storm is temporary. The mechanism is eternal. Or at least, it seems eternal in this moment. The mechanism seems like it will continue forever, ticking and tocking, measuring time, marking the passage of existence, long after the storm has passed, long after the rain has dried, long after the people in the city below have lived out their entire lives. The clockmaker then begins to explain the history of the clock. It was built, he tells you, more than 200 years ago by a master craftsman whose name has been lost to history. The craftsman spent his entire adult life building this single clock. He did not marry. He did not have children. He dedicated his entire existence to the pursuit of perfect measurement and perfect timing. He studied the works of earlier clockmakers. He learned everything that was known about the verge and foliot mechanism. He designed and built the gear train, calculating precisely how many teeth each gear should have so that they would all turn in perfect synchrony. He constructed the stone foundation that would support the mechanism. He hung the weights. He assembled everything together. And then, when he was an old man, the clock began to tick. It ticked its first tick. It tocked its first tock. And the sound echoed through the tower and out across the city below. People in the streets stopped and looked upward. They heard the sound and knew, somehow, that something had changed. Time had become visible. Time had been put into a mechanism that could be seen and heard and understood. The master craftsman, having completed his life's work, lived for only another year. He died in his sleep, and the clock continued to tick and tock without him. The current clockmaker, who is standing beside you, has been maintaining the mechanism for 30 years, as you have already learned. But before him, there was another clockmaker, and before that, another, stretching back through centuries. The clock has passed through the hands of dozens of masters, and it will continue to pass through the hands of dozens more as long as the city exists. Each clockmaker adds his own knowledge to the mechanism. Each clockmaker learns its secrets and mysteries. Each clockmaker becomes obsessed with its perfect functioning, and each clockmaker, eventually, passes the responsibility to the next. The clockmaker explains that he has an apprentice, a young man who is learning the craft. The apprentice comes to the tower with him twice a week, and together they perform the maintenance work. The apprentice is learning to listen to the sound of the mechanism, to feel the vibrations, to understand which sounds are normal and which indicate a problem. The apprentice is learning the names of all the components. The apprentice is learning the mathematics of gear ratios and pivot design. The apprentice is learning the responsibility of caring for something that is so important to so many people. One day, the clockmaker explains, the apprentice will become the master. The apprentice will take over the maintenance of the clock. The apprentice will become the keeper of time for the city. The responsibility will pass from the old to the young, as it has been passing for more than 200 years. You look around the clock chamber one more time, trying to absorb everything that you are seeing and hearing and feeling. The brass gears, the cold stone walls, the warm lamplight, the rhythmic ticking and talking, the smell of machine oil and ancient brass, the weights hanging in the darkness below, the clock face visible through the glass, with the storm raging outside. All of it forms a single complete image in your mind, an image that will stay with you forever. This is the clock. This is the heart of time. This is the place where humanity has captured an invisible force and made it visible, made it measurable, made it real. The clockmaker walks you back to the staircase and begins the descent with you, his footsteps echoing on the stone steps. As you walk down, the sound of the mechanism begins to fade. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The sound grows quieter and quieter. Your breathing, which has been synchronized with the ticking, begins to return to a more normal rhythm. Your heartbeat, which has been matching the pace of the escapement, begins to beat at its own natural rate. The spell of the mechanism is beginning to break. But it is not a spell that ends completely. Even as you descend, you can still feel the rhythm in your body. Even as the ticking becomes fainter, you can still hear it, not with your ears, but with the deep parts of your mind that have synchronized with the mechanism. Finally, you reach the bottom of the staircase and exit through the heavy wooden door. You step back out into the storm. The rain is still falling. The thunder is still rumbling. The wind is still blowing, but everything seems different now. The rain falls in a rhythm. The thunder arrives in measured intervals. The wind gusts at regular frequencies. The storm, which seemed chaotic when you first arrived at the base of the tower, now seems to be a kind of music. It is not random. It follows the same laws of physics that govern the turning of the gears. It is not without pattern. It is not without order. The universe itself, you realize, is like the clock inside the tower. It is ordered. It is rhythmic. It is measurable. And human beings, with their clocks and their measurements and their careful observations, are simply learning to read the pattern that has always been there. You turn back and look up at the tower. Lightning flashes across the sky, briefly illuminating the stone structure. And at the very top, visible only in the flash of lightning, you can see the clock face, still turning, still marking time, still measuring the seconds as they pass from the future into the present, and then into the past. The clock will continue to turn long after this storm has passed. It will continue to turn long after you have returned to your home. It will continue to turn long after you have died. The clock is eternal. Or at least, it seems eternal. It seems like it will continue forever, ticking and talking, measuring time, witnessing the passage of human existence, keeping score of the seconds and minutes and hours and days that make up a human life. You begin to walk away from the tower. Your breathing is deep and slow. Your heartbeat is steady and calm. And even though the ticking of the clock is no longer audible to your ears, you can still feel it somewhere deep inside your chest. You can still feel the rhythm. You can still feel the synchronization between your body and the mechanism that lives inside the tower. The clock has marked you. The clock has synchronized you. The clock has made you aware of something that you can never again be unaware of. You are not separate from the mechanism. You are part of the mechanism. Your life is a series of seconds, just like the ticking of the escapement. Your moments accumulate into minutes, just like the turning of the gears. Your years accumulate into a lifetime, just like the weights descending through the tower. This is the lesson of the medieval clock tower. This is the truth that the master craftsman discovered more than 200 years ago. This is the wisdom that the clockmakers have been passing from one generation to the next. Time is not an abstraction. Time is real. Time is physical. Time can be measured and counted and tracked and recorded. And in understanding time, in synchronizing yourself with the rhythm of time, you come to understand the rhythm of existence itself. You come to understand that you are not separate from the universe. You are part of the universe. Your heartbeat is an echo of the heartbeat of the cosmos. Your breathing is an echo of the breathing of time itself. As you walk away from the tower, the sound of the storm begins to fade. The rain seems lighter. The wind seems gentler. The thunder seems more distant. Your eyes grow heavy. Your body feels warm and safe and protected. The rhythm of the clock is still present in your body, still present in your mind. And as you drift towards sleep, as your consciousness begins to dissolve into the world of dreams, the ticking continues. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The clock in the tower continues to turn. The weights continue to descend. The gears continue to mesh perfectly together. The escapement continues to divide time into equal increments. And somewhere in the city below, people synchronize their lives with the rhythm of the clock. They wake when the bell tolls the morning hour. They work when the clock tells them it is time to work. They rest when the clock tells them it is time to rest. They live their lives in perfect synchrony with the mechanism that lives in the tower above. This is the story of the medieval clock. This is the story of human beings learning to measure and control time. This is the story of the clockmaker who dedicates his life to the pursuit of perfect precision and perfect timing. This is the story of the clock that continues to tick and tock, second after second, minute after minute, hour after hour, year after year, century after century. The clock is a metaphor for life itself. The clock is a reminder that time is precious and finite. The clock is a call to synchronize your life with the rhythm of the universe. And as you fall asleep tonight, listening to the fading echo of the ticking in your mind, know that somewhere in the world, the clock is still turning. The clock is still measuring time. The clock is still witnessing the passage of human existence. The clock will continue to turn long after you have fallen asleep. The clock will continue to turn long after you have awakened. The clock will continue to turn forever, marking the seconds, measuring the minutes, dividing the endless flow of time into countable, measurable increments. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Sleep now. Rest. Let the rhythm of the clock carry you into the world of dreams. The clockmaker turns to you as you stand in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the endless turning of brass gears and the steady ticking that fills every corner of the stone tower. He gestures toward a large wooden drum that is positioned at the base of the main gear train. This, he says, is where the work truly begins. This is where the clockmaker must exert his physical strength, his labor, his dedication to the mechanism. The weights, he explains, will eventually descend to the bottom of the tower after 24 hours of operation. When that happens, the clock must be wound. The weights must be raised back to the top. The potential energy must be restored. The mechanism must be reset for another day of perfect timekeeping. The clockmaker walks over to a heavy iron crank that is leaning against the wall. The crank is perhaps 5 feet long, and it is made of solid iron that has been blackened by years of handling. The crank is not beautiful, but it is functional. It is a tool of labor. It is the instrument through which the clockmaker exerts his will upon the mechanism. The clockmaker picks up the crank and moves toward the wooden drum. The drum is connected to a system of gears and pulleys that ultimately connect to the ropes that hold the weights. By turning the crank, the clockmaker will cause the drum to rotate, which will wind the rope, which will raise the weights back up the tower. The clockmaker attaches the crank to the drum with a series of metal pins that fit into corresponding holes. He handles the crank with the casual confidence of someone who has performed this action thousands of times. The crank fits perfectly into place, and you can hear the soft metal-on-metal sound as the pins slide into their sockets. Then the clockmaker grasps the handle of the crank with both hands. His hands are large and weathered, with calluses built up over decades of work. He braces his feet against the stone floor, spreading his legs slightly for balance, and then he begins to turn. The movement is slow at first. The clockmaker pulls the crank down, and the drum rotates by a few degrees. As the drum rotates, the rope begins to wind around it. The clockmaker continues pulling, then lifting, then pulling again in a steady circular motion. Pull down, lift up. Pull down, lift up. With each rotation of the crank, the rope winds tighter around the drum, and somewhere deep in the tower, one of the massive stone weights begins to ascend. You cannot see the weight from where you stand, but you can feel it. You can feel the increasing resistance in the crank as more and more weight is lifted against gravity. With each rotation of the crank comes a sound. Click. The ratchet mechanism engages, preventing the drum from rotating backward and allowing the weights to drop. Click, click, click. The sound is sharp and precise, a rhythmic clicking that matches the pulling of the crank. The clockmaker falls into a steady rhythm. Pull, click, pull, click, pull, click. His breathing synchronizes with the rhythm. His body sways slightly with the exertion. The muscles in his arms and shoulders tense and release, tense and release. He is not straining. He is not struggling. This is work that he has been doing every day for 3 decades. His body knows exactly how to distribute the effort so that he can maintain the rhythm for the entire duration of the winding. You watch as the clockmaker continues to turn the crank. Minutes pass. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. The clicking continues. Click, click, click. The rhythm is hypnotic, almost as hypnotic as the ticking of the escapement. Your breathing continues to synchronize with the rhythm of the work. Pull, click, pull, click, pull, click. And with each pull, another increment of rope winds around the drum, and the stone weights continue to rise through the darkness of the tower shaft. The clockmaker's face shows no sign of strain, but you can see the beads of perspiration forming on his forehead. The work is physically demanding. It requires sustained effort. It requires the commitment of the entire body. Finally, after what seems like an eternity of clicking, the crank reaches a point where it becomes impossible to turn further. The drum can hold no more rope. The weight has been fully raised. The clockmaker releases the crank and stands back, breathing heavily. He wipes his forehead with the back of his hand, leaving a smudge of darkness on his pale skin. His eyes are closed for a moment, and you can see the satisfaction in his expression. The winding is complete. The clock has been reset. For another 24 hours, the mechanism will operate perfectly, pulling the slowly descending weights, turning the gears, ticking and tocking through night and day. The clockmaker turns to you and explains that this winding must be done every single day. Every 24 hours, without fail, he must come to this tower and perform this labor. If he misses even one day, the weights will reach the bottom and the clock will stop. The city below will lose track of time. The bells will not ring. The people will not know when to wake and when to sleep. The entire social order that has been built around the rhythm of the clock will collapse. And so the clockmaker accepts this responsibility. He accepts this daily labor. He accepts the clicking of the ratchet and the pulling of the crank and the building up of lactic acid in his muscles. He accepts it because the alternative is unacceptable. The clock must continue. The clock must never stop. The clockmaker then sets down the crank and leads you toward the clock face. There is a small doorway, barely more than an opening in the wall, that leads to a narrow passage. You follow him through the passage, and you are aware that you are moving horizontally now, not vertically. You are stepping behind the enormous clock face. The passage is very narrow, and you must turn sideways to fit through the space. Your shoulders brush against the cold stone of the tower walls. The air is cold here, and you can smell the rain from outside. Finally, the passage opens up, and you find yourself in a strange space. You are now inside the mechanism that controls the clock hands. This is the dial space, the clockmaker explains. This is where the hour hand and the minute hand are driven by the gear train. The hands are positioned on the reverse side of the clock face, so from inside the tower, you are looking at the backward view of the numbers and markings that are visible from outside. The numerals are reversed, mirror images of what people in the street below see. The clock hands are massive structures, made of brass and iron, mounted on shafts that pass through the center of the clock face. The hour hand is shorter and thicker. The minute hand is longer and thinner. Both hands are connected to specific gears within the main gear train, and they move in perfect synchronization with the rest of the mechanism. You step closer and examine the clock hands. The brass is tarnished and dull on the outer surfaces, but you can see areas where it has been polished until it gleams. The hands move very slowly. As you watch, the minute hand advances by a single increment. It takes exactly 1 minute for the minute hand to move from one number mark to the next. The hour hand moves even more slowly, advancing by 1 hour mark every hour. The movement is so slow that it is barely perceptible, and yet it is absolute. The hands will continue to move at this precise rate, day after day, year after year, century after century. The clockmaker guides you over to the front of the clock face and opens a small glass panel that provides an opening to the outside. You lean through the opening and feel the cold air of the storm on your face. The rain is still falling heavily, and the wind pushes your hair back from your forehead. Below, the city is dark and sleeping. The streetlights are few and far between. The buildings are silhouettes against the night sky. The only light comes from the occasional flash of lightning, which briefly illuminates the entire city in a ghostly white glow. And in those moments of illumination, you can see the clock face itself, large and clear and visible from everywhere in the city below. The numbers are painted in white, gleaming in the lightning flash. The hands are positioned to show the exact time. Anyone in the city, at any moment, can look up and see the clock and know exactly what time it is. The clockmaker explains that this is the duty of the clock tower. This is the reason it exists. The clock face is a public service. It allows everyone in the city to synchronize their lives with accurate time. The merchants use it to know when to open their shops. The workers use it to know when to arrive at their labor. The families use it to know when to gather for meals. The church uses it to know when to ring the bells for prayer. Everyone's life is organized around the rhythm of the clock. And the clock face, visible to everyone, ensures that no one loses track of time. You pull your head back inside the tower and away from the rain. The clockmaker leads you back through the narrow passage and returns you to the main chamber. But instead of standing among the gears, he takes you to a small workbench where several objects are laid out on a cloth. One of these objects is a pendulum. It is a brass rod, perhaps 3 feet long, with a weight suspended from the end. The weight is a flat brass disc, several inches in diameter, and it catches the lamplight with a warm golden glow. The clockmaker explains that this pendulum is not part of the main mechanism. This is a supplementary device that has been added to the clock in recent years. Some of the most advanced clocks are now using pendulums to improve their accuracy. The pendulum oscillates back and forth at a regular rate, and this oscillation can be used to regulate the speed of the clock more precisely than the verge and foliot mechanism alone. However, the clockmaker still maintains the old verge and foliot as the primary regulating mechanism. The pendulum is an experiment, a way of exploring new possibilities. But regardless of its function, the pendulum must be polished. It must be kept clean and shining. The clockmaker picks up the pendulum and hands it to you. He gives you a soft cloth made of linen and a small bottle of polishing oil. He shows you how to apply a small amount of oil to the cloth and then to rub the brass in slow, circular motions. The motion is meditative. The cloth glides smoothly over the surface of the brass, and with each pass, the metal becomes shinier and more reflective. The lamplight catches on the surface and reflects back into your eyes, creating a warm golden glow that seems to emanate from the metal itself. You continue to polish, moving from the long rod to the weight at the bottom. Your breathing slows as you work. Your mind becomes quiet and focused. There is nothing in the world except the brass pendulum, the soft cloth in your hand, and the steady rhythm of your polishing motion. back and forth, back and forth. The brass responds to your touch, becoming more and more lustrous with each pass of the cloth. After several minutes of polishing, the pendulum gleams like new. It reflects the candlelight with a brilliance that seems almost otherworldly. The clockmaker nods in approval. This is part of the maintenance, he explains. This is part of the care and attention that keeps the mechanism functioning in perfect harmony. The clockmaker takes the pendulum from you and hangs it from a small hook on the wall. Then he leads you to another part of the mechanism. This is the bell striking apparatus. The clockmaker explains that the clock does more than just tell time through the position of the hands on the face. The clock also marks the passage of the hours through the ringing of a bell. This is how people know the time even if they cannot see the clock face. They listen to the bell, and they count the number of times it rings. 1 ring means 1 o'clock, 2 rings means 2 o'clock, and so on through 12. The bell is a large bronze structure, suspended from the ceiling by heavy iron brackets. The bell is deep and resonant, with a surface that has turned green with age. The clapper, which is the hammer that strikes the bell, is suspended just inside the opening of the bell. The clapper is connected to a mechanism that causes it to swing up and strike the bell when the hour hand reaches a certain position on the clock face. A cam, which is a specially shaped piece of metal attached to the hour hand shaft, pushes against a lever, which raises the clapper. When the cam rotates past the lever, the clapper falls back and strikes the bell with a soft thud. The clockmaker invites you to stand very close to the bell mechanism and wait for the next hour to arrive. You check the clock face and see that you have approximately 5 minutes to wait until the next hour strikes. You stand beside the bell, your heart beating with anticipation. The ticking of the escapement continues. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The minutes pass slowly. 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. And then, as the hour hand reaches the hour mark, you see the cam push against the lever. The clapper rises. For a moment, there is complete silence. The entire mechanism seems to hold its breath, and then the clapper falls. The bell strikes. The sound is not loud and harsh as you might expect. Instead, it is soft and muted, as if the stone floor of the tower is absorbing and dampening the sound of the strike. But what you feel is unmistakable. A low vibration travels through the floor, through your feet, through your legs, through your entire body. The vibration is deep and resonant, almost below the range of hearing, but it is felt rather than heard. It is as if the tower itself is humming. As if the stone and brass and iron are all vibrating in harmony with the strike of the bell. The clapper strikes again, and again. The vibrations wash over you in waves. 1, 2, 3. The bell is ringing out the hour. The sound travels down through the tower, out through the stone walls, and into the sleeping city below. People in their beds hear the bell and know, even in their sleep, that an hour has passed. The sound marks time. It makes time audible. It transforms the invisible passage of seconds and minutes into something physical, something that can be heard and felt. When the clock finishes striking, there is a moment of profound silence. The bell has stopped ringing. The clapper has returned to its resting position. The vibrations have faded from your body, and in the silence you are aware of the ticking once more. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The escapement has been ticking all this time, but you were not aware of it during the ringing of the bell. Now, as the silence descends, the ticking becomes the only sound. It is louder now than it was before. Or perhaps you are simply more aware of it, more attuned to it. The clockmaker explains that this cycle repeats every hour, every single hour without fail. The bell rings. The city hears the hour. The people synchronize themselves with the sound. And the clock continues on, ticking and tocking, measuring time, dividing existence into equal increments. The bell is the public voice of the clock. The ticking is the private voice, the sound that only the clockmaker hears, the sound that keeps him company in the hours of solitude. The clockmaker then takes you over to one of the high windows of the tower. The window is small and round, positioned in the thick stone wall. You look through it and see that the storm has begun to ease. The rain is still falling, but not as heavily as before. The wind is not gusting as violently. The lightning flashes are becoming less frequent. The storm is moving on, passing over the city and toward the mountains beyond. Soon, the rain will stop completely. Soon, the sky will clear. But for now, in this in-between moment, the storm is still present, but diminishing. The clockmaker tells you about the solitude of the tower. He tells you that there are many nights when he is here, alone, tending to the mechanism. The city below is sleeping. The streets are empty. The buildings are dark. And here in the tower, the only sound is the ticking of the clock. Tick, tock, tick, tock. No voices, no footsteps, no movement except the slow turning of the gears. It is a profound solitude, the clockmaker explains. It is a solitude that most people never experience. Most people are always surrounded by other humans, by voices, by the noise of daily life. But here in the tower, there is only the silence and the ticking. The clockmaker sits down on a heavy wooden chair that is positioned near the main gear train. The chair is old and worn, and it shows the marks of countless hours of sitting. He gestures for you to sit down as well. The two of you settle into the chairs, and for a long moment neither of you speaks. The ticking fills the silence. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Your breathing synchronizes with the ticking once more. Your heartbeat falls into rhythm with the escapement. Your entire being becomes attuned to the mechanism. The clockmaker explains that this solitude is not loneliness. It is not despair or depression or sadness. It is, instead, a kind of peace. In the solitude of the tower, the clockmaker is able to meditate. He is able to focus his mind on the perfection of the mechanism. He is able to commune with the intelligence that the original master craftsman built into this device. Every day that the clock continues to function, the clockmaker is in conversation with the dead master. The clockmaker is continuing the work that the master began more than 200 years ago. The clockmaker is ensuring that the master's vision continues to be realized. The solitude of the tower also provides a perspective on the world below. Down in the city, people hurry from place to place. They worry about small things. They stress about details that, in the larger perspective of time, are insignificant. But here in the tower, looking down at the sleeping city, the clockmaker can see things differently. He can see the impermanence of human concerns. He can see the eternal nature of time itself. He can see that his small daily task, the winding of the clock, the oiling of the mechanism, the striking of the bell, these tasks are eternal. They will continue long after he is dead. They will continue for centuries to come, as long as human beings exist and desire to measure time. The clockmaker tells you that the solitude has taught him patience. It has taught him to value silence. It has taught him that there is a profound beauty in repetition, in the steady, unchanging rhythm of the mechanism. Every day, the same actions. Every day, the same sounds. Every day, the same sights. And yet, every day is different, because every day the clock moves forward one day further into the future. Every day, the weight descends another small increment. Every day, the people below live their lives in synchrony with the rhythm of the machine. Every day, the machine continues to witness the passage of human existence. As the two of you sit in the chairs, you notice that the sound of the storm is fading. The rain has stopped. The wind has died down. The only sound now is the ticking of the clock. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The sound fills the entire tower chamber. It echoes off the stone walls. It resonates through the brass of the gears. It vibrates through the floor beneath your feet. The sound is everywhere and nowhere. It is the sound of the universe measuring itself. It is the sound of time flowing from future into past. The clockmaker closes his eyes and tips his head back, listening to the ticking. His face is peaceful and serene. You can see that he has heard this sound millions of times, and yet he still finds something in it that touches his soul. Something about the regularity and the perfection and the inevitability of the ticking resonates with something deep inside him. The ticking is the voice of reality itself, speaking the truth that cannot be denied or resisted. Time passes. Seconds become minutes. Minutes become hours. Hours become days. Days become years. Years become a lifetime. And all of it is being marked, counted, witnessed by the mechanism. You close your eyes as well and surrender to the ticking. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Your breathing becomes deep and slow. Your heartbeat becomes steady and calm. Your mind becomes quiet and peaceful. There is nothing to think about. There is nothing to worry about. There is only the ticking and the rhythm and the endless flow of time. The world below, with all its concerns and problems and conflicts, seems very far away. Here, in the tower, there is only peace and silence and the steady measurement of existence. Time passes, hours pass. You cannot tell how much time has passed because you are no longer tracking the seconds. You are simply existing in the present moment, synchronized with the mechanism. The ticking continues. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Your eyes are closed, but you can see the gears turning in your mind. You can see the escapement rocking back and forth. You can see the weights descending slowly through the darkness. You can see the clock face, visible to the sleeping city below. You can see the pendulum swinging back and forth. Left, right, left, right. The rhythm is hypnotic and perfect. The clockmaker speaks softly, his voice barely audible above the ticking. He tells you that the pendulum swings like this, always without interruption. Left, right, left, right. The motion is perpetual and eternal. The pendulum will swing long after the clockmaker is dead. The pendulum will swing long after you are dead. The pendulum will swing as long as gravity exists and time continues to flow. The pendulum is a meditation on the nature of existence. It is a reminder that nothing is static. Everything moves, everything changes. And yet, the pendulum's motion is perfectly regular and perfectly predictable. You watch the pendulum swinging in your mind. Left, right, left, right. The motion becomes slower and slower. Your mind becomes quieter and quieter. Your breathing becomes softer and softer. The ticking of the clock is fading into the distance. Tick, tock, tick, tock. But the sound is no longer audible to your ears. It is a sound that exists only in the deepest parts of your consciousness. It is a sound that your entire body can feel, but that does not register as sound in the normal way. The pendulum continues to swing. Left, right, left, right. You are sitting in the heavy wooden chair watching the pendulum swing. Your eyelids are heavy. Your body feels warm and comfortable. The tower is a safe place, a place where nothing bad can happen. The mechanism is protecting you. The clock is keeping you safe. The steady ticking is a lullaby singing you towards sleep. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The sound is muffled and distant, but it is always there. It will always be there. The clockmaker's voice becomes even softer. He tells you that this is where the clockmakers rest. This is where they recover from their labor. This is where they recharge their bodies and their spirits. They sit in this chair and they watch the pendulum swing. Left, right, left, right. And they allow their minds to become quiet and peaceful. They allow their bodies to relax. They allow the mechanism to carry them towards sleep. Your eyes are barely open now. The chamber is filled with warm lamplight. The gears are turning slowly, so slowly that you can barely detect the movement. The ticking continues, steady and rhythmic. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The sound is a lullaby. The sound is a prayer. The sound is the voice of eternity itself, speaking to you across the centuries. Sleep now, the ticking seems to say. Sleep and rest. The clock will continue without you. The mechanism will continue to turn. The weights will continue to descend. The bells will continue to ring. The city below will continue to synchronize itself with the rhythm of the machine. And you, here in this tower, in this sacred space, are safe. You are protected. You are cared for. The pendulum swings. Left, right, left, right. The motion is hypnotic and perfect. The motion is the essence of peace. The motion is the ultimate expression of serenity. Left, right, left, right. Your eyes close completely now. You are no longer watching the pendulum with your eyes. You are watching it with your mind, with your soul, with the deepest parts of your consciousness. And the pendulum continues to swing, always moving, always in motion, always dividing time into equal increments. The ticking grows fainter and fainter. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The sound is barely audible now, but it is always there. It is woven into the fabric of your consciousness. It is the rhythm that your entire being follows. It is the heartbeat of the universe itself. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The sound accompanies you as you drift deeper and deeper into sleep. The sound carries you into dreams. The sound follows you into the realm of unconsciousness. The clockmaker sits beside you in his chair, watching the mechanism turn. His eyes are open, but he is also in a state of meditation. He is also in communion with the machine. He is also listening to the ticking and the rhythm and the steady flow of time. The two of you are sitting together, alone in the tower, surrounded by brass and stone and the physical manifestation of time itself. The city below is sleeping. The storm has passed. The rain has stopped. The only sound is the endless ticking of the clock. The gears turn. The escapement rocks back and forth. The weights descend slowly through the darkness. The pendulum swings left and right. The bells remain silent until the next hour, when they will ring again. The clock face points to the exact time, visible to anyone in the city who looks upward. And in the chamber at the top of the tower, the clockmaker and his visitor sit in deep, peaceful silence, synchronized with the rhythm of the machine, protected by the steady beating of the mechanical heart. And as the pendulum swings and the gears turn silently in the dark, the time moves forward, steady and sure. The tower stands guard, and you are safe. Sleep well.